colorful connection to the canvas of his own creation, truly painting a picture all his own. From skin to soul, he shows that art is always owned by the artist first, a man marching with the mentality of running with his own rhythm, making metal into bone. A trailblazer truly on his own trek, searching for something, but perhaps it's simply more of self. Transforming suffering so it can have a place on his palette, all for the joy of no one else. A pure-hearted powerhouse of an artist, known affectionately as Trae Brooks. Hello, my name is Jordan D. with Cafeteria Media, presenting to you Innerview. Now let's take an inner look. A Connecticut native with a strong connection to his art, his path, and his self-work. First met Trae in art college, and after countless conversations and critiques, growing and suffering and succeeding in both our lives and ourselves, we became friends and now share a studio space in downtown Hartford. I've been keeping close tabs on his latest undertaking, metal sculptures, and I'm taken aback anytime a new one is transmuted into this timeline. These full-scale, human-like figures are unbelievable to witness in waking life. Breathtaking works that bend the metal and mind. Figures that seem familiar and futuristic, abstract, very gestural, yet complete in concept even if not true to the form that they could be suggesting. It's almost as if the works have achieved the Goldilocks zone when it comes to the addition and subtraction of material and mass. The contrast between metal meat and hollow holes, coming together in this massive balancing act that allows not even a hair of this scrap heap turned sculptural hero's journey to hit the floor. Well-placed welds and careful cuts allow these works to wake and walk all by the hands of the artist that could give Dr. Frankenstein a run for his monster-making money. There's something about the way this man bends metal. It's graceful and guided while being chaotic and almost careless. I once again run into the phenomenon where it's almost as if by magic, these momentous monuments get made. You can see the care, the message, and the personal progress, the trials, the tribulations, tests, missteps, all to get to the end form that is truly unbelievable. Unpolished, but not unfinished. Some may mention that the rust, the sharp and rough edges are unprofessional, unclean, unkempt. But I would say that this viewpoint is not seeing past the sculpture's Lazarus pit, also known as the scrap heap. These may be seen as limitations or chains that bind the work, but I believe it actually frees it and allows the option for an evolution in a more polished direction. Of course, if the artist so chooses. But I am of the tribe that doesn't want perfect pieces cut and welded to make manicured, almost manufactured masterpieces. I feel the nature of the work as they truly stand out now speaks to the nature of the world and, more importantly, the figures that represent ourselves. How are we expected to be these bright, shiny, perfect beings with polished corners and curves, pleasing to everyone from every angle? An angel whose wings are bound is hanging up only for a disingenuous display. Trae, in my mind, chooses to keep the rough edges and outlines, the marks and mistakes, the scars of hard work, the scars of time and trials, the scars of himself, and most importantly, the scars of his self-work, and chooses to put them forward first to display, almost to say that we are not perfect beings, which is God's honest truth, preaching that our rusts and rivets don't have to be polished to make us beautiful, but that the true battle is with society's standards of both success and self. To me, Trae is saying that we are constructed as we should be, and the wear and tear that some would call weakness, the tears and trauma that cause us to rust, is in fact what makes the best of what makes us, us. During the course of my time, a conversation came up. Trae and I had brought up some very good points on a topic that many artists love to discuss and debate. The question being, does all great art come from a place of suffering? And can great art be made without great suffering? This is a segment from a conversation, edited to make more sense as it flows and follows. I led the conversation with, do you feel the only necessary means for us to suffer is to seek joy, and the only reason we feel such intense joy is because of the great suffering we have endured? Trae then responded with, if you're in a limbo state, you never have a point of reference for both suffering and for joy. But it's a matter of taking both into perspective. But specifically when it comes to art and art making, there has to be a level of suffering that is involved. But you get the same thing on the flip side of creating, just because of the elation of the creation. I then responded with, let's say there's a grand creator that created us and everything. Now, being beings that come from the same source, almost like DNA and attributes that get passed down from parent to child, we would have a natural attribute to do the same. But I feel that as artists, the need is even stronger. The mentality is that I don't get to create, but that I have to create. That it's a need and a non-option. Trae then said, it's not a luxury, it's a need. But I also think the act of creation, even without the art-making aspect, the act of it is a need because as human beings we need to procreate in order to survive and pass on our genes, but I would argue that creation is a need no matter what form it takes. I then said, from bird nests to its eventual inhabitants, we all have to create in order to progress and survive. Trae then said, to parlay that even further, there's even suffering in creation. Childbirth is painful, but it follows with the joy of having created a child. So I do think that there is a dance between creation and suffering, and I think it's not as simple as a binary of good and bad. Same how death is a part of life, not the end of it. Suffering is a part of creation, not the destruction of it. Suffering is not the end of joy. I then said, so suffering is merely the doorway to joy, and joy is merely the doorway to suffering? Trae then retorted with, exactly. Even this crown, the piece that he was working on, there is nothing but joy in it. Even the concept is centered around joy. When a lot of the art I make somewhat comes from a place of suffering, especially the fit and finish of the work. But I don't want to be the artist that wants to create purely out of a place of suffering, because it doesn't always come from a place of suffering. Sometimes it comes from a place of pure joy. And that joy doesn't have to look like a certain thing. For example, I can paint a pretty picture, and that can come from a place of joy or suffering. I think the only real difference here is actual intent. To end the conversation, I was reminded of the story of Sisyphus. The man cursed to push the boulder up the hill every morning just to watch it fall back down every evening. One can see this intense process as a living hell, doing all of the hard work to achieve a goal only to be set with the same one the very next day. But like Trae said, it's the intent behind it. There's something that Albert Camus said that adds the cherry on top of this legend. He said, one must imagine Sisyphus happy. The intent behind every push, the intent behind every centimeter to meter crossed, every bead of sweat and scar, every moment pushing higher and higher, every moment awake and every moment gloriously alive. We can choose to suffer with our imperfections, we can choose to suffer within our circumstances, but we can also choose to find joy in them as well. But if it's our purpose in life to push a great boulder up a hill, just like if it's our purpose in life to create great art, then allow us to dance in the joy and the suffering. Allow us to dance in it all. And once we reach the end of day, and it's time to push the boulder back up the hill, only to do it again tomorrow and again the day next, I would too want to imagine myself dancing to the beat of my own drum, dancing with whatever purpose was bestowed upon my shoulders, dancing with every inch and suffering of each step, and dancing when I have to start the process again, dancing as I get stronger with each passing day, dancing with the joy as I push the boulder either way. And hopefully, as I do it, I dance like the artist in me, because I know Trae dances like the artist in Trae. This has been Jordan D. Alexandre with Cafeteria Media. Thank you, and take care.